Hello and welcome to another episode of Cowboys Takeover. I'm Aaron James. Good to be here with you for our post-game episode as we look to break down kind of what took place in Charlotte, North Carolina, specifically with our boys taking care of business as many of us predicted would be the case. We cover our spread over 10.5 points. We continue to dominate on the call it what it is, the teams that are below 500. But you do what you're supposed to do. So we're gonna hit over offense, defense, kind of share our comments, anything we should be concerned about. Let me bring in my co-host. You know him as Wise Counsel, Jason Kent. Jason, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great today. Another, in the beginning today, a little shaky. You weren't sure. I don't think the score was indicative of how I felt most of the game. But like you said, that final score, they covered the spread. They did what they needed to do when they needed to do it. So satisfied with another big win against the team that we should be beating like that. It's nice to see them actually beating these teams, because I felt like in years past they've let these teams hang around, and these teams have taken a game or two from us. Mm-hmm. So it feels good. We did give one up earlier since Arizona, but since that Arizona game, we've really handled business. And seeing the way Josh Dobbs has played in Minnesota, you can't be looking back at it. It's not that bad of, I get Arizona looks. I think they have one win. Not that bad of a loss with the way Dobbs is playing. He's a good quarterback, so we can't be too bad. But all in all, it was a very satisfying performance this week, I think.
Yeah, I'm there with you too. I was hoping that we were going to be, the game was going to be handled, by the first half. But we didn't jump off to a good start as kind of anticipated. So speaking of that, why don't we just kind of dive right in? Pluses and minuses with the offense. I will kick us off here in that we start the game with another 3-and-out.
Yeah, that's tough.
I hate to harp on that, but you have, for your game plan, everybody knows that the offensive coordinator knows the 7 to 10 plays that they're going to call to start the game. And these should be your most confident play calls, that the looks you're going to get from the defensive end. How they're going to line up to start the game. And yet we don't find any rhythm.
No, so I agree. It started out with, we had the first play that, get 7 yards. You get that second and short. You're thinking you're going to do well. And then just, you kind of fumble out. So it's kind of, that was disappointing. I agree with you there. That's, especially with the way, your first down play. But you hate to see, especially against a team like this, playing in their stadium. I feel like when you get the ball there, let's shut it down early. 3-and-out's tough against the Carolina Panthers. Start the game.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we'll get into kind of a little bit more of the play calling style and key moments, but overall, from an offensive production perspective, we had 311 total yards, 23 first downs. We were about 40% third down efficiency, 5 penalties for 45 yards. I was hoping to get 3 for the game. And then kind of last stat here to go over from a time of possession, it's almost 50-50. We were just over 31. And so with 204 passing yards, Dak continues his efficiency, but
his efficiency, yeah, but he just didn't look, like he has the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Carolina did a good job of really, there were some plays where Dallas did make, but they were really making Dak, throw low. They were playing too high safety. They weren't giving him that opportunity to make the big play. So to me, while the numbers don't look like what they've looked like the past week, and I feel like before I would have ripped Dak for this, he took what they gave him, and he didn't make the mistakes. He took what they gave him. Like you said, 2 touchdowns. He was 25 of 38. He had like 19 attempts in the first half. Whereas, when you're looking at the run pass in the beginning, you're like, oof, especially against Carolina, where you thought, but he didn't make the mistake. So he took what was there. So as that 5 yards per pass, kind of, you don't like it, but when you come away, when they're really taking away the pass after what you've done the last 4 weeks, you're happy he didn't try to force anything, didn't make the mistake that really, give the other team momentum. So you got to be, it's not what he's had, it's not those gaudy numbers. You're happy with what he did. I think, to me, I'm very satisfied with how he performed this week.
Yeah, it's of course preferred as fans. You want to go in and light up the scoreboard every time, but this is not Madden as much as we like to think and believe that it is. The eye test tells me, he took care of the football. He, like you said, took what the defense gave him. The CD led the team with 6 receptions, only 38 yards. I didn't see a whole. I watched basically the entire game from my phone because I was not home, but I couldn't tell if like CD was double teamed a lot, or how they really kind of took him out of the game, or if we just didn't, include him in the game so much. Would you say it was more defensive caused, or? I
just think like the way, I think it was the way the defense was playing. They were taking away the big plays. It looked like they were, Dak was really spreading it around this week. Lamb only had, I think, 9 targets, caught 6 of them. So, but they were trying to keep everything in front. Felt like they were not trying to let Dallas beat them with the big plays this week, where you're seeing Dallas make the big plays and have the big chunk plays. They weren't really allowing that this week at all. They really made Dallas do that. You heard everybody laugh before, make the joke about Dak, but the Dak and dunk. And, he, for his credit, he didn't try to force much today. I think, he was highest targets with 9. Ferguson had 9. Ferguson had 5 targets. Gallup had 5. Cooks had 4. Pollard had 5. Tolbert had 5. So it really felt like Dak was spreading it around after, the last few weeks of really pushing it to CeeDee Lamb. Deservedly so. He's one of the best receivers in the league. But to really, against a game like Carolina, you should win. So it's nice to see him really kind of flow it out and give the other guys attempts. Get them some targets, get them some catches this week. But it really felt like a game plan on Carolina's side to really try to keep everything in front of them and not let Dallas have that explosive and really start letting that offense go. Because we've seen the last few weeks, when that offense is moving, they're really cranking. So it felt like that's what Carolina was doing most of that game, to keep it a close game.
Yeah. So, we have obviously some other comments when it comes to big moments to share around the offense, but why don't we talk a little bit about our defense?
That's what shined this week. That is what shined this week.
Yeah. So Cowboys forced how many punts here? I think 5. I think we forced 5 punts, only allowed 3 points in the first half, and a touchdown, which took 3 fourth down conversions in the third quarter.
But they did force another punt as well. They did. And me and you talked about this. They did force a 6th. They did have that rough and running into the kicker call on a beautiful, beautiful punt by Hecker on the 1 yard line. But yeah, so they did force an extra. So it shouldn't even have been, they shouldn't even have had that momentum.
Sure.
The defense looked good most of the game. That one possession bothered me in that third quarter because we talked about, you had messaged me, you're like Sam Williams, bro, or something like, I was just like, hey, he made up for it later. But that was to me, it felt like there was a turning point there. Because, even though you're 17-3 going into half, I didn't feel like we were dominating that game. We didn't look like we typically have offensively, even though we have 17 points. I felt like it should have been a bigger lead. there were some plays there, and then they give up the field goal. But Dallas, they just didn't look like their typical selves the last few weeks. And then you come out you come out defensively, stop them. Then you have another, you have a 5 and out, and then 17 plays for 70 yards. Now it was helped by that Sam Williams running into the kicker, but they gave up 3 first downs on fourth down. I think they converted 3 fourth down attempts.
That's right, on that drive alone. Yeah,
and 2 of them, it made me laugh because there's a play in Madden where I'm like, it's tough to stop. And 2 of them, it was that same exact play. The one, I don't know if it was the first or second first down, but I think it was the first one. And then the touchdown, they ran that little RPO and threw it right to the dude wide open. I don't forget who it was. I think it was Thielen that scored. But he converted both their things. But it was one of those you don't want to see. I'm sorry, it was Tremble that caught it. But you don't want to see, that was my biggest harp with the defense. You don't want to see your defense give up 3 third downs. That's tough on the same drive where you should be getting off the field multiple different times. That was tough, but then they made up for it. They sacked. I felt bad for Bryce Young. He had the same thing as last week. We had, I think, 17 plus pressures on the quarterback. He was running for his life. 7 sacks. Micah had 2.5. 7 different players registered a sack. That's crazy when you think Micah had 2.5. We still had 7 total players. Just they give it half a sack. So it's really good to see that defensive line eat. And then what else can you say about DeRon Bland that we haven't said? He really felt like he sealed it. Even though it was over, but that pick, that play by him, I don't know if you saw it. You said, what, but there was I was watching. I don't know if it was a bad pass combination of Bland making up coverage, but he, to intercept that ball, and then, NFL record setting or tying 4th interception for a touchdown. It just feels like when, this kid makes big plays all the time. In that defense, it's nice to see when they're able to just go after a quarterback, what they can do. And they've really shown it this year at how good they are at getting to a quarterback, and everybody gets there.
And I really love what Greg Olson said about DeRon Bland. He's not just a big playmaker. He's an all-around solid corner, right? So whereas, just to compare a little bit, Diggs were known for being vulnerable with the big plays. Bland's not giving all that up. He's all that and a bag of chips. He's all that in the cake, however you want to describe it. And it was a man-to-man coverage. And Olsen even said, like, this was just an amazing individual effort, because the wide receiver, starts running the crossing route, and Bland has to make up space. And when Bryce Young throws the ball, it doesn't look like Bland's really even gonna get to it.
No.
But he just closes in so quickly.
There was so much space there. Like to me, when I
Yes.
first saw it, I'm like, I think it was a combination of Bland closing, and I do think it was underthrown a little bit on that play, because Bland he shouldn't have been able to close on that play. Is when I first saw it, my first thought was, that's a tough pass. You got to do better that, because that's the type, especially on those crossers. If you throw it behind, if you don't get out in front of there, that's going to happen every time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I saw it twice, if you look at the replay, it's not like the receiver is reaching for his back hip.
Yeah.
So, great individual play. And when you put plays like that on tape, you're just going to get in quarterbacks' heads, and they're going to be like, man, even if I see my guy open, and I know Bland's on him, I know Bland can close. So you're just going to create more hesitation, more fear, more worry in opposing quarterbacks when you put that type of play on tape. So, that's awesome. I do have a couple things, about the defense, a couple notes that I wrote down. Well, so first, to come back to Sam Williams, yes, he seems to be the consistent, just mental mistakes. But if he's here sitting next to us, he's probably saying, guys, it was 4th and 7. And it was, he didn't give him an automatic first down. They still decided
He was very
to
close on
go
that. He
out.
was close on that. It was very close. So it's one of those things in that moment. If I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm not harping on it as much because I thought there was an opportunity for him to block the punt. I do think it was like a fingertip or two away from him actually getting a hand on it, because you even heard the announcers as soon as it happened, oh, it looked like he got a finger on it, which after watching how great it was, I'm like, there's no way.
Mhm.
But you
Mhm.
heard the announcers even say it. So something like that, I'm not going to be as upset for him to go aggressive and try to block the punt, because there are situations where he'll get there, he'll get home, and that could turn into a touchdown.
And yeah, as annoying of a penalty as it is, 9 times out of 10, the coach is going to decline that penalty when your punt lands on the 2-yard line.
Exactly.
So, it's yeah, it's still a little frustrating. I think it's our second one of the year. You can't do that in the playoffs, especially when you have the lead. Just get the ball back. Like I want to see our coaching, much more sharpened going into the playoffs. It's not like, hey, 14-point lead, good guy, let's go and try to block this. It's like, no, keep control of the game, get the ball back into your offense's hands, and keep momentum, start to drain that clock, and get the win. So that's one thing I wanted to harp on. One more other thing is
To comment on that though, they did have
sure,
there were two other fourth downs. So it's tough for me to
that's true,
really
that's
get
true.
mad because giving up points there, because the defense as a whole on that drive, really didn't come through. They did give up two other fourth downs.
Yeah.
You're right though. In the playoffs, you can't have it. You don't want to see it. And I felt like there were some a little couple mistakes, but other than that, like, I was shocked. They had him. You can't be mad at Sam Williams. I think he's played really good this year. Um, I
Hmm.
think he's really stepping, a guy early in the season or before the season started. I know he had, some bad things, but he's really, put it behind him. And even Jerry said he's a guy that's going to be here. So you got to be happy with him. And, I know we did talk about Bland, but I think with both of them, with the type of season they're having in their second season, it's very good to see these younger guys really coming through.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about our options going into the off season, as to what we want to do with the strength of our cornerbacks. But that's going into next year. But so a couple things to your point, they converted an additional 2 4th downs. And to me, that's why I've continued to call on a mixing up our coverage. Because if I recall correctly, and I could be wrong, both of those 4th down conversions were on man-to-man coverage. And so when you do that, and you're just that much more predictable, it becomes a little bit easier. It becomes you put the favor in the offense to drum up something that's going to more than not be successful in a man-to-man type of situation. And so with that being said, Jordan Lewis, Dallas Goddard had a pretty good game, and Lewis was on a lot of those coverages. He needs to play a little bit better. I know it's not I wouldn't say he's our I mean, he's obviously our weakest, probably DB all around, with safeties included, but the drop off is not huge. He is coming off of injury. Um, Coming into this season, I don't think he didn't have the whole off season to prepare, but he's going to need to play at a higher level than what we've seen so far.
No, I,
As-
I definitely agree. I agree with you there. But I can't, this was a guy that was projected to be a fourth corner. So it's, I can't really,
Mhm, that's true.
he wasn't supposed to be a starter. And in terms of the man coverage, it's tough for me to say switch it up when most of the season, they are mainly a man team, and it's worked. So I agree with the point, but it was tough when you get those motions, and nobody was on the receiver on either one of those fourth down or two of the three. I think. Well, I think all three of the fourth downs they had wide open receivers that they were able to connect with. So it does
Mhm.
stink, but it's tough to say go away from what gets you there. They are mainly a man team, run a lot of man and let those guys just run. And they have the talent to do it. So I'm not going to, while I little agree with you, switch it up. Both of those things, Lewis wouldn't be in the field if it's not for an injury for Diggs. And, what we run with the man it works. It gets home. They pressured the quarterback. Man, it does think we have to drum up some little bit of negativity we're winning it all these weeks, but it's one of those things I'm very satisfied. I do want to kind of turn. I think we did miss something with that offense. I want to look back at the offense real quick. Another thing I was really happy with, they didn't give up sacks at all. Dak was very well protected this week.
Good
And
point.
I get it's Carolina, but it was nice to see him, like we stated, stay, not make the mistake, and then just stay up and make the plays. And the other thing, after we really kind of ripped into Pollard last week, I think he had another, pretty solid game running. I know it was aided by the 22-yard touchdown, but he looked okay. But you did see Rico. He didn't have the game he's had in the past, but they did start to insert him in more. So I do think, the things we talked about in the pregame show with Rico getting more touches, it seemed to help both Pollard, in that touchdown run, that 22-yard touchdown run. He looked explosive, and he was finishing a lot of his runs this week. So it looked like maybe him not being the main guy, getting 12 carries. I think that's going to be the new norm. I want to see him get about 10 to 12, have him look fresh, because he really looked like he was finishing those runs this week. And then the offensive line, I definitely need a shout out. And I think the second week in a row, we had the same. I can't remember last time we went 2 weeks in a row with having the same starting offensive line.
Yeah.
And they looked very good. So it was nice. It was very good. I do think we missed that. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, give shout outs to both Pollard and that offensive line for looking so good this week, or, much better than they have. And Dak not having to get destroyed back there and run for his life.
Yeah, yeah, and also I guess one point I wrote down that I wanted to just bring up, as it pertains to the offense, are the touchdown that we scored to make it 17-3 going into halftime. That was aided by 3 first down penalties on third downs. We had like a horse collar / face mask tackle that had never happened before.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Perfect.
Yeah, like
Right.
I've
Well
never seen
said.
that.
We had roughing the passer when Dak slid. I think it was a couple plays before Dak gave himself up on a third down and he got hit in the head. So that gave us a first down. Until ultimately CD, I think it was, that caught that particular touchdown. So, I mean, if you're a Panthers fan, you're saying the game was a little bit closer than the score indicates, but going back to the defense again, the
As a Cowboys fan, though, I think it was. It felt much closer than what that score indicated. The final score
Mhm.
definitely, even going in half. It was one of those games that I don't think should have been that close, and it felt, even though it was 17-3, 17-10, it could have been much. It just felt super close, like the whole game.
Yeah.
Besides where the fourth quarter, where we finally put the dagger in them. But you're right. They did feel like they kept Carolina in it, but it was the one stat they showed. It was crazy. Like Carolina's total touchdowns or offensive touchdowns for the year is 12, and Dak had 12 in the last 3 games or something like that. The last 3 or 4 games. It's like, okay, I never felt worried where I would have in the past, but it definitely felt like a very close game, closer than it should have been early in that game, or at least through the third quarter.
Yeah, and again, our defense allowed for 187 total yards. I set out going into this game, I was going to be happy if we kept them under 250. I don't know why because I said some garbage time and some backups. Coming in, only 77 passing yards for Bryce Young. One thing that I was a little bit upset about, they ended with 110 rush yards and I believe 7 5 of that was in the first half. There were some pretty big holes for Chuba Hubbard to run through in the first half.
That's so. I get my question. Do you think, because I felt like recently we've been playing very good in the run game, do you attribute any of that to really losing Van Der Esch? Because I don't remember somebody really running on us this good since, you know, Arizona. Because it
Right.
felt, and he felt like he was finishing his runs too. It felt like if this was a team that was a good team, that running game was a power run game. It felt like he's not a power back. He's not, explosive. He's not going to be what some of those other backs were. But I was watching that, and that was a thought of mine that, man, Chuba, however you pronounce, I know they were saying different than I did. But he was finishing his runs head down, old school. And Dallas, it felt like it was a close game where they didn't need to. If they could have been able to run the ball more, it felt like they could have if they really wanted to. And that was the big thing to me. I was kind of wishing we could have shut that down a little bit better there. But that was a negative I did have, was that run defense. Look, they would run over.
Yeah, and I'm nervous that we potentially may have put something on tape regarding that their run blocking schemes. I know even Greg Olson said, hey, when they run the zone runs option, that's when you saw our D line start to penetrate. But when they had a couple of these other types of runs outside of the zone, they were having success. When it comes to Van Der Esch, I mean, we were even having difficulty during his time there, and that even dates back to last season.
Yeah.
So I think that's attributed more to our D line. We gotta stay a little bit more, take more control of our gaps. I do think that, as much as I like having Parsons move around, if it's a run play and Parsons is over the center, I think that just makes him more vulnerable to.
He had 2.5 sacks. I can't. I'm not like I think in different, but I think to me when I look at that, I can't even, if you're going to tell me Micah is going to get 2.5 sacks and we're going to give up some rushing yards because of it, I'll take it, because I think those sacks are worth more than that running game. I'm okay with him.
That's fair.
Because like today, this was I don't think they said 3. I think he finished with 2.5. They switched it, but this is the most dominant he's looked this season. And he was finally getting home today with some of those stunts and getting around. And I think it really opened up more room for everyone else. So I agree where it's going to hurt it definitely will hurt the run game, because he's a smaller guy. You get a left guard just going to throw him around. But I'll take it. I'll take a little more rush yards to get him those, start having him eat more.
Yeah. I'm with you there. So I know you put big moments on here for us to talk about. I mean, what were some of the big moments you thought kind of stood out?
The ones that really I just think there was a few of them with the sacks. Them getting home.
Okay. Yeah.
There were some. Those were to me the biggest, and then I think the biggest one we could we mentioned it earlier. When you look defensively, Bland, and I just think he's, like you stated earlier, he's really coming into his own. He's not the guy that he's not giving up the big play like Diggs did. He's really feels like he's really a lockdown. He's just so definitely shows that dude that, he's in his second year, really. He's got 11 interceptions in 2 years. Just every time he touches the ball, it feels like a big play. He just of course, 4 touchdowns, just very opportunistic. And that to me, and I thought to me, another big moment was, if you're breaking it down, I think that Sam Williams was a big moment because it did lead to a touchdown, especially where you were at in the game. So I think, those were the biggest moments to me. And then really, if you look on the offensive side, I think the Pollard touchdown, because I think the game was kind of, it was a 1 possession game. So they looked really good that drive after, Carolina goes 17 plays, 70 yards, and really 8 minutes off the clock, really drove it down. You know, 3 4th down conversions. You're like, oh man, okay, now it's a 1-score game where we feel like we've really been dominating them, and Carolina is just sitting around. And then you start going out and you come out and you just march your way down the field. It wasn't, a big explosive plays. They really just marched their way down the field. And then Pollard it looked like just a straight run up the middle, and the gap was there, and he was running through guys to, finish the touchdown. So it was this, I think each of the sack was very important. The Bland play on defense, and then that Pollard play on offense. I think that's what sealed the game, because that's where, you gave Carolina all of that momentum on that 17 play, 3 4th downs. You give them all that momentum, which really stunk. And then that offense came through, and Pollard really put a stamp on that touchdown. And feel like, maybe he's starting to turn, maybe less, we talked about less carries. Rico getting some more, you're keeping him fresh, get him, I'm okay taking some of those carries away and giving it to him in the passing game. He's a guy that's very dangerous with the ball in his hands. He did have 4 catches on 5 targets today. So I think that's something I would like to see more of, is maybe Pollard, 10 to 12 carries, let Rico get some, let Deuce get some. And, we utilize them in that run game more, or I'm sorry, in the pass game more.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple opportunities today, and where we've seen him, be able to make one guy miss. It just seems like that hasn't been the same this year as it has been last year. But when you saw that, when we had that touchdown run, or Pollard did, I was like watching the game quietly, and when he made that run, it made me go, "Let's go, Pollard!" Like, it just like made me. I wasn't really verbal this game because I'm like, hey, it's like a
We
relaxed
should.
game, just a
Yeah.
lot of observing, because you just have all the confidence that we're gonna do well. But man, he showed that burst, getting into that second level, had at least one nice cut in there, and just bulldozes his way. That's the Pollard we're used to seeing. And like I've mentioned before, second half of the season, any player can have, you can change uh, your perception, you can change the whole outlook of the season. You can change it from the first half and the second half. So yeah,
When you're
good
looking
good
at that
showing. It was a
too,
good showing.
it was, but that touchdown run comes right late in or I think it was late in the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. Yeah, it was the end of the 3rd, beginning of the 4th. So it's one of those moments where last year that's what we're used to seeing from him late in the game. When you're coming 4th quarter, your D line's beat up, the defense is beat up, and that's where Pollard would come in and really start feasting. Shout out Chris DeFrancisco. Wanted to see him get at least 5 more carries. I just don't think that's Pollard anymore. I'd like, after watching him the first half of this season, Pollard's not a guy that should carry the ball 17 times, 16 times a game. I think, 10 to 13 should be where he sits, and Rico should come in there. 5 more touches, I would be okay. You get him some more passes out of the backfield. He could. He's not McCaffrey, but he's definitely a guy that's a receiving back that we can see. But I do think this looked like vintage Pollard. He didn't have to run the ball a lot early. He kind of spelled him with Rico early in the game, giving us opportunities. So it's exciting to see what Pollard's going to do. If this is kind of how they do it the rest of the season, if you're getting 30 carries a game, Pollard gets some, let Rico get a lot, get Deuce in there, try to, split it up, and then with Turpin, with the way they're using Turpin and CD now, they ran a little bit of Wildcat. I think they're seeming to be opening it up, and I I think this is how it's going to be the rest of the season, where Pollard's going to kind of stay low, and you'll see the big plays, explosive Pollard that we're used to seeing in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. In regards to another big moment, our kicker, Brandon Aubrey, misses his first extra point.
No, I thought that was I thought he missed the extra point in game one.
Did he?
Wasn't it? I think it was his
The
second
very
extra point. Yeah, the very first
okay.
extra point of the season, he did miss. So it did stink to see him miss number 2. But I was thinking, I wasn't sure. I'm pretty sure it was it was an extra point early in the season. I'll double check that. Why is it not going back? But I do think that's what it was first game. Let me double check that, just because we like to have our facts straight here.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, and either way, a very uncharacteristic miss by Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, so it was. Yeah, it was. They got that defensive touchdown week 1, and Aubrey missed the extra point. It was with how good he's been playing this season. And it's good because he came back later, made a field goal. I think next possession. So it's not something he's not a guy that I'm worried about. It's not like we felt last year where we're just missing extra points left and right. He came back in another one.
Yeah, I mean, so Aubrey's still 100% on field goals, 19 of 19, 29 of 31 on extra points. He's 4 for 4 on field goals, 50 or more. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better replacement for Maher. And even, what we saw with Maher in the playoffs, that was just a complete meltdown across the board of every grade and facet you can think of. So, hey, not huge, but so uncharacteristic. I thought it was just worth throwing out there.
But I do like to see, some of the things they're doing. I wouldn't really call them big moments, but you've been championing for some kind of, different play, some trickeration, so it's nice to see Turpin early in the game get his run. They're lining CD up, something they tend to do. They do it a decent amount. CD in the backfield, and then they shift out Pollard. CD gets the run. I think it was a first down play. So it's nice to see stuff like that happening. You're getting those different type of looks, kind of gadget plays, if you will. I think those are things that they need to, against the good teams, they're going to need some of that stuff. And man, Turpin, he was one, if he didn't get tapped there, I think on the play, he was a little high, missed the right foot and went down, but he's a guy, man. I feel like every time the ball's in his hands, especially when he hits space, because he's so shifty. Really reminds you of, I don't want to say he's definitely not Devin Hester, but like in that open field, he's tough to take down, and he's got some speed to take it to the house every time. So it's really, I really like how they're using him, and it's nice to see him back after being injured, getting his touches.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So to wrap up today's episode, we wanted to talk about Bland. Can Bland be an all-pro? I'm going to take it a step further. I think he has inserted himself as a potential, as of right now, defensive player of the year.
I'm going to go ahead and say I'm 100% right there with you.
And it sounds somewhat bold to say.
So I'm going to disagree with that statement, because 4 defensive touchdowns, that's something you don't see often. And it was it's funny because I was watching something they're talking about. I think it was Charles Woodson the one year where I think it was the year he won the defensive player in the year, and he was trying to let people know how good he was. He's like, listen, I affect the game in so many ways. And I think that's what we're seeing. Anytime, it's nice to have a lockdown corner, but it's even better when you have a guy that's a ball hawk as a lockdown corner. Because that's what we're seeing with this kid. And I think I'm going to go ahead and I think he's already made a case this season for all pro this season, but can he keep it going forward? because this is a dude, 5 interceptions last year. You put him into that starting role this year. He's got 6 already. The touchdowns are something you won't see every year, but man, a step further, a defensive player of the year. I think he has a great opportunity for that.
Well, and here's why. Because he's still here's who he has upcoming. Terry McLaurin. He's going to have some coverage on. DJ Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. He's going to see A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith again. Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, and Waddle. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Detroit guys. I mean, the schedule just is going to help. The difficulty of schedule is going to help his case. If he can just do half of what he's done so far this year, the first half of the season, get 2 or 3 more pick sixes.
If he finishes with 10 interceptions, even if he doesn't return anymore for touchdowns, man, that's he's a game changer. And it's it does stink that we lost Diggs, because would Bland be playing this out of his mind without it? No, I don't believe he would. But it's nice to see what you have. But I think you got to be satisfied, man. Even looking forward, projecting out, you have him and Diggs going forward to one dude's locked up and Bland's in his second year. They're probably going to lock him up, when time comes. But you got to be satisfied with what we've seen already. He's dropped, I think, 1 or 2 interceptions. He definitely dropped 1. There's probably been some other plays too, but he's really developed into a shutdown corner and a ball hawk. So I wasn't even thinking defensive player of the year. But if you get a guy with 15 sacks most, there's an argument there when you got 4 defensive touchdowns at minimum. 6 interceptions. He's probably going to finish with 10. I didn't even think of that. That's that's impressive.
He is the benefactor of our D line, right? All the pressure that gets put on a quarterback, whether they're throwing off balance or what have you, whatever the case may be, playing from behind. He is benefiting from that somewhat, but that's not the sole reason why he's as successful as he is. Do you want to call it this now? Do you want? What do you think the chances are Gilmore comes back?
I'm going to say 0.
Oh,
it's going to be tough. Because
ouch.
I think there's other needs. I would still like to see. They're going to have to go after a linebacker. Yeah. So I do think you would really like to allocate those resources to a middle linebacker, especially with Leighton. Most likely career over. It's you hate to say it and you hate to see it. Honestly, as a fan, I'd rather see him be done, because you don't want to see him risk any more injury. So it's going to be tough to bring him back and really fill that hole. So I'm going to think no, but it would be beautiful to see. You could sit in at least nickel all day and just have 3 shutdown corners out there. It'd be beautiful.
I mean,
where you throw the ball.
I think he's at a point in this season. I think he just loves the culture that he's in, and he's made his money. I just see a scenario where he says, "Hey, man, Jerry, I want to be here. What can we work out? Because we don't have to pay Bland next year."
I'm 100% okay. 100% okay. If they can say, if you can come in and kind of play that hybrid linebacker role, maybe draft a linebacker, in the draft this year. If we can bring him back on a 1-year, 2-year deal, because most of your defensive line's going to be there. Maybe you lose Smith. So there's some plays there, but I think if he wants to come back on a team friendly deal, you got to do it. I think with the way your defensive line is and how good they are, you can't not. If he wants to be back on a friendly deal.
Yeah. So, we'll see how that shakes out. But what is it going to take for you to buy a Bland jersey?
Oh, he might be the next guy I get. No, Micah. It's going to be Micah, and then it could be Bland. This kid, It's impressive. I think what he's done this season, being really forced into that role is impressive. It's nothing short of impressive because, last year he didn't have to be the guy. And this year you lose Diggs and you really get worried. But I think what he's doing is well beyond impressive, and I think you're going to start seeing a lot more Bland jerseys at the stadium and around town, everywhere for Cowboys fans because he's a kid that really looks like a baller.
Yeah, I mean, we have arguably one of the best recruiting executives, and Will McClay is his name, right? Just amazing talent we've had in our drafting, but we can't simply win on the draft. You're going to have to pick up players here and there, veterans, a superstar, someone like Gilmore, and bringing in Cooks. I think we made the right moves. Another good week to build on as we go into Turkey Day, and something I said coming into the pregame. With a performance like this, Dak is out by going into the fourth quarter or early on in the fourth. So, he's gonna be fresh. He's gonna be rested.
Yeah.
I think same for most of our offense. I don't think we were strained all that much, given the circumstances. And one fun thing before we close out, going into this Panthers game, when you think of the Carolina Panthers, Jason, who are the top 2 or 3 players of all time do you come to mind?
Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Cam Newton. I don't.
Okay.
Oh, Luke Kuechly.
There you go. Yeah.
Those are the 3.
I forgot about Cam Newton already. I thought of Jake Delhomme, not because
that's a good one.
He was all that great, but he got them to a Super Bowl.
They had a couple, D'Angelo Williams, and I forget who the other guy was with him.
Julius Peppers.
So there's a lot of guys there, but I think Julius probably a Hall of Famer. But Cam just, I think, had such an impact on the game in them. Steve Smith was just that dude.
Yeah.
And then I think Luke Kuechly is an all-timer. Like he's a Hall of Famer as well. And he could have played more. If he's on a good team, I think he may have played longer. But he was definitely a stud. So was Julius, but yeah.
I mean, Greg Olsen was pretty good too.
He was. They've had some talent in their short time. They've, been around 96, 95. They've had a lot of talent on that team in their time frame.
Frank Reich, the coach, said something funny. He was quoted saying, Cowboys Nation travels well, so we're prepared for silent count if needed. But I don't really think it's that we travel well. I think it's that we have in big cities like Charlotte.
Oh, there's going to be a big fan base, yeah.
It's just a big fan base. It's not so much that people flying in.
100%. No, I feel like you're going to get them everywhere. 100%.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Jason, before I close this out?
I think, like I stated, I feel super confident.
So how about this? How would you grade our coaches?
I'm okay with today. I would give a B+. I was kind of annoyed with the fourth downs. That's knocked it down, but I think they played a fantastic game. I enjoyed the play calling, and they put the team in the position to win.
Mm-hmm.
You would like to see a little bit better on those fourth downs, but a solid B+ this week.
Yeah, they get a B+ for me, and the only reason why they don't get an A is just because we didn't have that 350-yard plus in offense, or let alone close to 300 in passing. Right.
So before you end it, I know we have a big schedule coming up. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like at this point, McCarthy's off the hot seat? Where we kind of thought earlier he may have been.
No, he's not off the hot seat. He needs a very productive December. Last 2 seasons, right? We ended with 3 losses each of the last 2 seasons. We have to I mean, if we can win out with our schedule, and we somehow end up on top of the Eagles for that number 1 seed, we would have played the Detroit. So even though the Detroit only has 2 losses, we would have beat them, and probably, I don't know if that's the tiebreaker or not, but they struggled today against Chicago. Now, for me, McCarthy needs to have a very strong December. Look to lock in that 1 seed, because as good as we're playing at home, that's a guaranteed NFC Championship game. And then because your first playoff game is going to be either against the 4th seed or a wild card. Yeah. So that's the, we're not out of it. He's had, I like how comfortable he's gotten Dak to this point. So he's definitely better off than preseason, I would say. But to me, he's not completely off the hot seat. You got him off?
No, because
Okay.
I do think the toughest part of the schedule is coming up, but I think it's conversation. I think I'm happy with the way he's been calling plays and changing it around. So I expect, where I was a little nervous going into the tough part of our schedule, I expect to do better than what I thought we would do earlier in the season. So some of those losses I may have had, I may be switching them just because I've liked his adjustments with Dak in the offense this season. After that stretch, I think I would make that's when I'll really look at it. But as of right now, I would say no, but I think he's trending in that direction big time.
All right. Yeah. Well, something we'll continue to have our eyes on, and that's what we have for you today, friends, as our post game week 11. Wow, this week is flying by. We want to thank all of you listeners, friends, family, for all your support. If this is one of your first episodes with us, Jason and I bring you a pregame, post-game shows every week. We got 2 episodes a week right now, and man, we have Thanksgiving coming up. We're gonna be breaking down that game. That's gonna be available by Tuesday evening is our plan, and then we get back. We're gonna have another chance at the Eagles, and then to our schedule with pretty good teams in December. So a lot to look forward to, a lot to get into, a lot to break down, a lot of excitement for us. In the thick of things. Still have a lot of work to do, but showing really good promise, and our quarterback is playing at a high level. So give us a like, give us a follow, however you listen to us. Again, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, where we stream on YouTube and on Facebook. So wherever you like to get your podcast content, you can find us there. Until next time, that is Jason Kent, Aaron James. We'll catch you guys pre-game for Turkey Day. God bless.